Hey, we're looking at the life of Jesus through the scriptures. It's specifically in Mark's Gospel, chapter 9. We're having a look at the way that Jesus reveals himself so that we can get things right. Right about Jesus, but also right about the way we live. Jesus leads the disciples right off the Mount of Transfiguration, this moment where he reveals his glory and his power and who he really is. And he leads them all the way down the mountain into the valley where there's a boy and a father with a boy who has been suffering from an illness for so many years. Actually, he doesn't know how he's going to get him any help. You know what's really interesting is that the disciples and the Pharisees are arguing about why they can't help this man. You know, I think about this a lot because I know a lot of issues in the world that seem too hard. They seem too late. And I know so many people who struggle with things in their life, systemic things, systemic poverty, for example, or human trafficking, or vulnerable girls that are exploited. It feels like it's too hard. Extreme poverty in the world would just feel like I cannot make any difference at all. And the temptation that we have is the same temptation that the disciples have, is instead of actually helping the boy, we want to have conversations about whose fault is it and why we can't do it. And we endlessly have these conversations because if we're honest, it's just the deep end. It feels overwhelming. But that's exactly where Jesus leads us, to the deep end every time. As a matter of fact, what Jesus says, he's kind of a little bit ticked off about all the disciples and the religious folks arguing while this boy is convulsing in this fit. And Jesus says to the crowd, "Bring the boy to me." And the father brings his son to Jesus and says, "I've tried everything and nobody can help me. Can you help me? If you can, would you heal my son?" And then this is the verse that I just want to point out because I think it's so beautiful. This is what Jesus says in this situation. "What do you mean, if I can?" Jesus asked. "Anything is possible if a person believes." And the father instantly cried out. Listen to this cry. It's so beautiful. "I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief. I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief." This is what I pray. This is how we get things right, not just to instantly to believe, but to ask Jesus to help us in our unbelief, in those places that are too hard, in our own family systems of violence or systemic abuse, or just even despair, or even cynicism, or even hopelessness, or inactivity, or whatever it is, injustice that we're a part of, oppression that comes in our lives in 1,000 different flavors and 100 different forms. It's not that we have to muster up some sort of faith all by ourselves. It's that we move towards the person of Jesus and we say to this man who's saying that he can do things that are impossible for everybody else, and to say to him, "I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief." You can do this today with whatever's too hard and whatever's too late, it seems like, in your life. It is not impossible for God. "Help me overcome my unbelief" is a prayer that you can pray to get things right.